Hello, everybody. Today, I and Big N19 are sitting down to take a look at the Sealed Masters tournament that was ran yesterday. Neither of us were available to run the stream live while it was happening, but, well, we have replays. So we're going to go through the event and we're going to discuss what was done and take a look and offer our commentary, even a day late. So, Nelson, Big N19, why don't you go over what this event was and so on?
Sure. So this event is for the sixth qualifying spot in the Sealed Masters tournament. So the format for this one was the 9 sealed, which is where you choose a free people side, one of 9 options. Each deck is based off one of the 9 companions in the fellowship, and then you also choose a shadow side, and you choose one of the 9 shadow decks, which are based around the 9 Nazgul. So they each have unique strategies in each one. You open up a variety of packs, and then based off what you open, you can choose the deck that works best for you and pair the 2 sides together. And then, yeah, the tournament is just Swiss style, and first place gets the 6th qualifying spot for the final tournament.
And there were some changes that were made to the 9 after it was ran as a month-long event, league event. There were some balancing changes that you made. What were those?
Yeah, so I found that some of the shadows weren't particularly effective because they didn't have any companion control. So I gave everybody one copy of Shotgun and Quaya. Um, and then there was a minor change that I also made to the Mary deck because it didn't really have any Frodo protection. So I cut Kingsmail and I added in Hobbit Sword. So just one copy of Hobbit Sword so that it has the ability to defend itself a little bit here and there. And the major changes was to the Inquaya Shadow, which was very dominant when we ran this as a league. And people were a bit upset with how strong it is in terms of adding burdens. So I pinpointed that most of the negative play experiences were from Thin and Stretched being drawn early in the game. So I just removed that condition entirely. I also took out one of the 2 copies of Grizhnak because it was too good at cycling. You could never actually add the burdens, so it was always just draw 3 cards. And so I still left 1 in the deck, but I removed the 2nd copy of that. And then I took out 2 of the Shotgun and Quayas. So instead of having 4 in the deck, you only have 2. And then to replace those cards, I added in 2 copies of the Twilight in Quaya, which unfortunately doesn't link very well there.
Yeah.
And then 1 copy of Gorgoroth Stormer, which some synergy with Desperate Defense of the Ring and can still add some burdens. And then I'm trying to remember what the last edition was. Now I'm blanking on what I added.
Actually, I think I've got it over here. It was Orc Chaser.
Oh yeah, that's right. So it's still, again, something that works well with Desperate Defense of the Ring, where you can get initiative from cards being discarded. But it's just a little less powerful than the deck was before, but it still should be very strong against Gondor in particular, because you need to have a few shadows that keep the Aragorn and Boromir decks in check, or else those 2 free people sides would get a bit out of hand.
Right on. So, what kinds of so you mentioned that Inquaya was particularly strong. Besides that, what sort of things were you seeing during the league version of this event? What was the meta?
Primarily, it's mainly free people's wins. During the league itself, people realized that the Sauron Shadow, the Inquaya deck, was very powerful and it added a lot of burdens. So a lot of people ended up taking the Gandalf deck. And then also the Sam deck was still quite popular because both of those 2 free people sides can remove burdens pretty well. So it kept them out of Inquaya trouble, pretty substantially safe. So I'll be interested to see if those are still 2 free people sides that are the most popular. And I assume people are still going to want to play in Quaya, especially after the success that that deck had in the League version of it. Ironically, though, the deck that won was Commandante's deck, and he had the Aragorn Free People side, which is supposed to be very bad against the Inquaya side, and the Cantea Shadow, which is an Uruk-hai Shadow side. So, he did it without the two most popular choices. So it'll be interesting to see if there's another surprise combination that gets the win in this tournament, or if it goes back to Quaya and Gandalf or something along those lines.
Once again, emphasizing that it's not all about the cards that you pull. Individual skill definitely has a way of shining through in these events. So
Absolutely, yeah.
we do have the lists of all the decks that made it. Do you just want to go over the decks real quick before we dive into the replays, or do you want to leave it a surprise, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, we can take a look at what people chose. I'm going to start. Well, we can start at the top here, I guess.
Start at the top or the bottom? We can start at the bottom.
Sure, start at the bottom. Okay, so our first person here is Botnik, and it looks like, what did he play here? We played the Frodo deck again, which is one of my personal favorites because it's pretty hard to make a deck that is centered around Frodo and not making him the ring bearer. So it's a fun deck. I'm glad that he's trying it. But yeah, that's nice to see. And then Shadow side, it looks like he is playing the Cantea deck, which is the one that Commandante had used to win the tournament. So we'll see if he has success with that. Let's move up to the next one here. Gangoof, looks like he's playing the Legolas deck, which is completely focused on archery and wounding people before the skirmish phase. It can be very strong against certain shadows and very weak against other shadows. Especially in things that are enduring, it can cause massive issues for this deck. But if it gets the right matchups, it'll completely dominate. And then his shadow side, it looks like it is the Toldea shadow, which is kind of a mix of Uruk-hai and Isengard orcs.
Feels like a very big deck on either side.
Focus.
Or at least
yeah, I think he added a lot of extra cards. Yeah, which yeah, some of these I'm looking at them and there's not too much synergy with some of them, but I had to add in things like Sauron's defenses, which could make the move limit -1. So he had some reason for splashing some of these Sauron minions in. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Then TMSS2. Looks like he played the Aragorn deck, which is always a solid, safe choice. That deck can double pretty easily and is really good against quite a number of shadows, but decently weak against Inquaya and decently weak against the Witch King shadows. And then on the shadow side, it looked like he went with Inquaya and yeah, added in an Easterling and a Golem.
Pulled another copy of Grishnak to replace the one that was taken out.
Yeah. That's a good pull for him. That's a great card. Yeah, so looks like he's going with the tried and true so far, and we'll see how that goes for him. Okay, let's next. He got Snazman, and he is playing the Mary deck. That's good. I feel like Mary didn't get a lot of play because everyone realized that there was no ring bearer protection, other than Rohirrim bows to shoot things down in the archery phase. So adding in even that one Hobbit sword, I think, makes the deck quite a bit more playable. I think it's a bit underrated that people look at it and think that there's no protection, because you do get 3 of those bows and you can shoot things, and that can protect you on a double. But yeah, it's nice to see that someone's given it a try with the addition of the Hobbit sword. And then on the shadow side, this looks like another Inquaya deck. Yeah. So he's going to be going for those burdens as well, and the overwhelms and the big minions. So yeah, that seems like a safe shadow. The thing is, it's a good shadow to choose if you don't have any pulls that really point you in a specific direction. You're always going to have consistent companion control. and you always have ways of getting to 5 burdens, and then just you basically win at that point. So it's a solid choice anytime you're not sure what to do. Let's move up to the Faker. The Faker went with the Boromir deck, which I think is, personally, I think it's slightly stronger than the Aragorn deck in terms of the two Gondor decks, but it's extremely fragile if Boromir dies. If you can kill Boromir, then the deck kind of just flounders, and you just don't have that healing that you need that he provides as the hero of Osgiliath gets to heal every time he wins a skirmish. Yeah, another solid deck though. Um, there was a reason that I built these shadow sides to have to combat Gondor specifically, because so many good Gondor cards. Both of the Gondor builds are very good, and then you're likely to open a lot of Gondor cards in your packs, and that'll only make it even better. So yeah, so he went with the Boromir, and then again, looks like we have another Inquaya, which is very popular. Um, I was hoping to see a few less Inquaya than this. It looks like most people are still choosing that, but yeah, we'll see how they fare if it's
I think especially if they
shadow
weren't really
dominated.
aware that the changes may have happened. I think that's one thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I didn't get the word out quite as early as I wanted to with that, so there's a pretty good chance that a lot of people didn't know about the changes and just went with what was the dominant choice during the league.
Right.
And then we have Gam, and Domgan went with the Sam deck, which, as I said earlier on here, is the one of the good choices against Inquaya because it has ability to heal, and then you can also always kill off your Frodo and then have Sam take over the ring and start over at 0 burdens again if you absolutely need to. So there's lots of flexibility with this deck, and if you get Sudden Fury, the condition, early enough in the game, you'll just most likely never die in a skirmish, and you can double pretty recklessly with the deck. So it's a solid free people side, despite how aggressively average it might look at a first glance. I think it has a lot of a lot of potential to double and keep the Twilight cost low as well. So just a traditional Shire Hobbit deck that sneaks around and you just can't kill the little guys.
And then he
For the
paired it with
shadow side,
Inquaya.
again, another Inquaya. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of Inquaya. I think we're going to be watching here. So it'll be interesting to see what advantages this Free People side might have in other matchups against the Inquaya deck. And then let's go up to Demaz here. And it looks like he is playing... He's got quite the mix of companions. So he went with the Sam deck as well.
But cut almost all the cup. Well, I guess that makes sense. If you're starting him, then you don't need.
Yeah, that's interesting. The companions he's playing are quite interesting. Like the Boromir is unbelievable. That's a great draw that he opened in a pack. And he got some good Rohan companions, including that Eomer that can search for weapons. Does he have any weapons? That's the next question, though. If not, it's just an 8 strength wound soak. Yeah, it looks like nothing. So interesting. So he's really just playing sort of good companions that he opened up along with the baseline of hobbits. I'm assuming he's going to start all the hobbits based off his only 1 copy of each. And then Shadow Side, Deja Vu. We got Quayas. And Teeth of Mordor is an interesting pull that can really create some issues if he stacks some good orcs on there. So yeah, that's going to be quite interesting to see how that plays out. And it's funny looking at the shadow list, and it's just like one of almost everything. And then you get a couple Wisp of Pale Sheen, 3 Inquaya, 2 The Ring is Mine, 2 Desperate Defense. But so many different unique cards, which will lead to a lot of unique setups for the shadow side.
All right, well, right on. So we were kind of talking about this before the stream. We can go about this a couple different ways. We can just watch a bunch of round ones. With this many players, actually, we can probably just watch all of them. It's probably only going to be 3 matches, and since we've got the control of the
yeah, I think might as well do
button,
it.
Yeah. So let me it occurs to me that I don't actually know how to keep these apart because, like, for instance, we just see that it's round 1 with this particular individual, but I don't have a listing of the matchups. I guess we'll just have to stumble through it. So,
Yeah, that sounds good.
all right, let's leave DMAZs for later. I know that one of the guys down here ended up getting the bye, so they're not going to have anything. So let's look at Botnik's game. And Botnik is... Okay, here we go. Botnik versus Snazman, so we can skip over that. Gangoof got the bye.
Oh, and then he dropped after, so
And then he dropped,
Gangoof
yeah.
never actually even played.
So TMS versus DMAZ, all right. And then it should be the Faker versus Domgam. All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll just start here then.
Sure, this should be a good matchup. Both of these players are very skilled at sealed, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Now, unlike the spectation, we're going to be seeing it from the perspective of one of the players, so we're going to get to see what exactly is in their hand.
Yeah, this will be nice. So they both bid 2, and Faker won the coin toss there. He gets to go first. Frying Pan is a pretty good pull in terms of protecting yourself against Nkoya shadows, which are very orc heavy. Orc Officer. That's interesting. You only get 1 copy of Orc Officer in this deck, and he has the ability, if an orc overwhelms a character, he can add 3 burdens. So it's interesting playing that right off the bat, because it can be a valuable setup card if you have the right combination in your hand.
Frying Pan's all over.
But still a pretty yeah, pretty easy double to 3, which is pretty standard for sealed for the most part. Early Desperate Defense of the Ring on Sam, that could be valuable to have.
He's the only one with double-digit strength among them, yeah, so Frying Pan being used to take out that assassin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we're going to see is Domgam probably being decently successful in this matchup because he's playing against a Gondor Fellowship, and he'll be able to add burdens a lot quicker. And having started already at 2 burdens is fairly risky in that Nkoya is probably going to get online at a decent speed here.
So this Boromir getting kitted out with the spear and the armor.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see what he does with the sight, because he has the ability to remove 2 burdens to make his minion strength +2, but I don't think he'll want to remove the burdens, so I don't think he'll use it. Okay, so Faker made sure to kill off Wisp of Pale Sheen so that it can't add any burdens, which is a really smart move. And then so you're going to run into this Sight 5, where you're going to have to discard your hand. You don't really have much of a choice, because you don't want to add 2 burdens and then be, 1 away from Doom and Gloom.
Yep,
but that's a fairly costly discard. You had 2 Nkoyas in there and some other good burden type of cards. So, but you got to do it. You basically don't have a choice against this shadow. You just chuck your hand and see how you reload in the regroup phase. But this is the thing against the Nkoya deck. Especially if you're playing Gondor, you really need to run. Because if you take your time, they're going to get to 5 burdens, and then they're just going to destroy you with their copies of Shotgun and Koya. So Faker's playing this exactly how he should. He only has 4 companions, but he's still just sprinting as fast as he can down the sight path. And so the big thing here is going to be, can he get a stop? Because there's a decent chance he's going to need a stop. So DMAS just used, I think it's Tolman Cotton is the Hobbit there, to cancel the addition of the burden from Desperate Defense of the Ring. And Tolman Cotton is such an underrated card in this matchup.
Yeah, it definitely
and then
pretty much negates that,
also,
right? Like turn it into an exertion on a Hobbit of all things, which is just not not that expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's exactly. You can load them up with preventions and then just, you know, kill them off when you don't need them anymore. Yeah, Demaz is keeping all the cards that he wants in his hands and still not getting burdens added. So he's in pretty good shape there. But killed off Farmer Maggot, which is totally fine. Prevented another burden.
So I
But this
think
is
here
interesting.
that Domgam tried to use Starglass against the Wisp of Pale Sheen, but I think he missed the timing there because it only would have been until
Hmm.
the regroup phase, which did not actually help. Um,
Right.
so that was probably a bit of a misplay, or just not quite
Yeah, now
realizing the.
Frodo's up at 5 burdens now, so this could be interesting, but very unfortunate that Faker had to discard 2 of his Enquea to the Site 5 situation.
Hmm.
So, let's see, what's the plan here? Okay, he's just going to kill off the Faramir. Threat wounds. Okay, so that gets the stop. That could be big. Now, is he going to be able to get through this sanctuary, or is it going to be a stop for Domgam as well? It's a desperate defense of the ring.
Now, Desperate Defense doesn't have a limit one per bearer clause. And in this
Right.
particular case, the fact that Tolman has been negating one copy, it might almost make sense to throw both of them on Sam and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
make it so that you absolutely can't use your biggest guy, and especially with an
Right.
exhausted Tolman here.
Yeah, I would have liked that idea uh, as a line to kind of prevent Sam from skirmishing so free.
Yeah. It is pretty standard to spread them out and just try to limit their. Basically, rather than saying, here's my one victory condition, say, it doesn't matter what choice you make, I win in all of them because now all of your characters have these burdens being added. But still.
Faker gets one guy killed off. Oh, here we go. And then Enduring Evil is going to kill the second one unless he saves him, which, yeah, easy enough to do, I guess. It's interesting to use the Enduring Evil that early, too, when you're not getting a kill out of it.
I think it's probably just a matter
But,
of not holding on to all those cards in hand.
yeah. You know, I'll have to say Faker's doing a great job not getting the burdens added right now because he's, you know, starting with 2 and only going up to 3 is quite surprising. Okay, this will be interesting. Host of Voodoo. Ah, a Fool is going to prevent him from being overwhelmed unless his strength is tripled,
Hmm.
which is a nice little addition to that deck. Okay, so the Faker has the option of going above 5 companions, but probably won't, I'm assuming. Similar to last turn, where he also had extra companions in hand.
I mean, if you're going to spend all that effort making sure you don't hit that 5 burden threshold so that Enquea doesn't wreck you, you'd be pretty reckless to add that 6th companion and have all that careful planning go to waste.
Exactly. Yeah,
Ah,
once you get to 5,
jeez.
then, you know, oh, that's deadly. Uh, what can the poor Gondorians do against such an army? Okay, added the
They're all
burden from
coming.
Desperate Defense of the Ring, and then added the additional one with The Ring is Mine. Yeah, he's just cycling his hand, it looks like.
Hang on, what was that with Aya Baradur? Previous player, or no, making. Oh, okay, yeah, so just cycling it out because
It's
that
made
was
her
just
-1,
minus
but
strength.
yeah,
Yeah,
cycle. Oh, this is a bit of a rough draw. Or, well, I guess the Siege Troop is good.
especially since that you've already got desperate defense on Sam, and so
Yep. And Eye of Baradur in hand will make it so that he can overwhelm him, unless there's some sort of protection.
yeah, that's a nice surprise. That's oh okay.
Ah, he's prepared for it. Yeah, get another token. This looks like it's a easy-ish double to 9. with both Frodo and Sam alive and 3 tokens on sudden fury, and you're going to be able to have your other hobbits lose and get more tokens on it. Because every time a companion loses a skirmish, you get a token, and then you can remove one to pump one of um, your Shire companions. Here, just in case anyone somehow becomes fierce. But yeah, even through those siege troops, it was a pretty safe double into 9 there.
All right. So Domgam pulls out the win there against the, what was it, the 2023 World Challenger, the Faker. Did very well at the World Championship, but yeah, got beat here.
Yeah, I believe he's been in top 8 in both years so far.
Yeah. Curious to see if he and others show up at the top 8 for the World Championship this year.
Yeah, round 3. Hopefully you can run it back again. Okay, so we got DMAZ also on Hobbits, and or I should say on Sam, and TMSS2 on the Aragorn deck. Yeah, this is more of a bid. A 0 bid for the Aragorn deck makes sense to me. I would have expected the Boromir deck to also bid 0. So it was pretty impressive that he was able to navigate without getting burdens added for that long in the first game there. But yeah, this is one of the advantages that the Sam deck and the Gandalf deck have, is that they can kind of bid a little bit more recklessly and actually go first a lot more consistently, because they don't have to worry as much about burden prevention.
There's the teeth. You're talking
Ooh,
about having
Teeth of
that at the very
Mordor
beginning,
early.
and
Yep, that's gonna be. I think that's gonna be a big issue potentially. Like even now, does he want to double? He probably has to double, but it's gonna let him be able to stack one of these 2 pretty good minions on the Teeth of Mordor. Yeah, okay. So he's opting for the Officer, which has that ability to get some burst 3 burdens if you get an overwhelm, which is huge. A nice touch in here because you do have some unbound hobbits to reduce his twilight cost.
I was gonna say, did he play
Yeah,
the
draws 3
Marauder
cards from
last?
it.
Oh, wrong. Okay, wrong advanced orc. I was thinking of the ones that do something else.
Mm. Hmm. Okay, so he got a stop though. That was an effective shadow stop. Leave the wounds on the wraith so that he still is strength 10.
In a situation like this where he's a splashed wraith and you don't really have a good chance of having swept away, though, that becomes a break glass in case of emergency sort of character where you only pull him out when he's gonna actually win the skirmish, because otherwise it's just a guaranteed death. It almost,
Right.
it was probably just the replay, but it almost did feel kind of like a pause where the guy was waiting. Should I heal this guy or not? But
Right. Okay, the Gimli splash, just an extra wound pin cushion.
the foil Gimli too. If this had been an actual sealed event, that would have been pretty neat to
Yeah.
pull a foil card and get to use it. That's actually one of the aspects of real life tabletop sealed that you don't actually see at all here in any of these digital events. Where sometimes if you come across a card that you don't care about but does happen to be high value or foil or something like that, you might draft it or try to utilize it, even if it's not conducive to your strategy, just so that you can go home with it. And I guess that's more of
Right.
a draft
Yeah.
thing than a sealed thing, but
Yeah, for sure in draft. Like getting those foils. If you get a rare foil, it might be useless for your deck, but you take that for the money.
So
Okay,
narrow
Demaz
escape.
is using yeah. Okay. Did he double? I don't think he doubled though. No, just
Huh.
cycling the hand.
Yeah, just cycling it out. That seems like a pretty powerful card to just cycle though. Like,
Yeah, my guess is he probably has a second in his hand,
hmm.
but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you play both if you have two. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he just didn't need it. Wants to heal. Okay, build a pony. Choke the Twilight a little bit more. Yeah, that no fear of going up to 6 companions. I guess he knows that he can't have his Sam killed by Inquea right now because he's full vitality. But he does get forced to stop at this site now.
So taking out
Interesting. Redgar Bolger. I think it's just because he has the
the orc.
frying pan
Yeah, the
on him.
frying pan, and he has used it.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice though, but I get it. Like you know that there's no pumps or anything for these 8 strength splash companions, so but I think there's an argument to be made that you just don't kill any companions and you put 3 wounds on Sam, and then you put him in a bit more of a dire situation, especially if you get another Inquea.
Yeah, and that would have left the 6 companions in play, so you'd be able to do it again next round, and then you could take out Sam and someone else maybe, depending on the
Right?
layout.
Okay. This will be interesting. Orc officer. Oh, okay. Maybe he just doesn't have a good shadow hand. I thought he was going to have some sort of combination for getting some burdens here, but
Yeah, with that seven Twilight going unused, he must have drawn poorly.
oh, okay. He did have Enduring Evil there, so he's getting 3 burdens off of that, and then a 4th one from the Ring is Mine. So now we're in Quea zone, and that is a scary place to be. He gets to stack him again. Yeah, Demaz is set up pretty well here. Okay, there's the Sudden Fury. Okay, there's Boromir. Yeah, this is based off TMS his hand here. It's probably going to be a double to 9. I can't imagine him being able to draw enough to get a kill.
Why would he use Starglass against that?
I don't know. Oh, because he didn't want the 3 burdens added.
No, but
Because he let the Host of Voodoo.
Was he fierce?
Because the Host of Voodoo overwhelmed someone. So he knew he was killing off a companion with the Host of Voodoo skirmish, so he didn't want the three burdens added from the other orc.
Right, but I mean, hang on. So I'm not sure that I understand what happened there. So we have. Oh no, not you. Oh, because of the the double doesn't matter. Where the heck was the Starglass used?
It was
Because
back at Site 8, so
did I miss it already? So it's only until the regroup phase, and it's only getting rid of the game text. And so he used it on Orc
be on the
Officer. An
orc
officer
officer.
isn't
Yeah,
fierce, but he was so Sam was skirmishing this officer and beat him, right? So he wasn't in a position to be overwhelmed himself.
right.
Yeah, I'm seeing some
But it's
weird uses of
if any
Starglass in this game. This one of the
well,
most.
but so this is because if any orc overwhelms a character, the officer adds 3 burdens. So
Oh,
he
I
got rid of that text
gotcha.
so that
Okay, it's not when
yeah,
this
because he was
officer.
killing off someone.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. All right, I was thinking that was text that just said when he overwhelmed, but that's not the case. Okay,
Right.
that makes way more sense.
No, and
Uh,
and then he
Okay, and yeah,
safely gets
like
to
you said,
9.
he
Yeah,
just kind of
so
waltzed to the end here with or wait a minute. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he drew no extra minions, and that was it. So again, Sam deck's looking pretty good so far. Okay, Botnik and Snazman. Okay, I'm excited to see how this Mary deck plays. And then my very enjoyable Frodo side, which is very fragile at the start, unfortunately, but yeah, we'll see how it can be navigated here.
So when you built this
Interesting.
using
Okay.
the Uruk-hai culture from Shadows, did you specifically mix in Isengard with it, or was that just a draw that he happened to have?
Just a draw.
Hmm.
Yeah, this deck is all pure Uruk-hai culture, and I guess you have your Kantea, which is Nazgul, but
Right.
yeah, other than the Nazgul, it's all Uruk-hai culture.
That's one of the
And I
niggling things that I've been wondering about solving sometime with the PC is taking all those post Shadows cultures and converting them to the pre Shadows cultures. I wonder if that would open anything up.
Yeah, it would be interesting. One of the interesting things that I've found building a lot of these decks is that because in the movie block era, um, Isengard had, orcs and Uruk-hai and men and Saruman. So there's a whole bunch of different races, and so a lot of their cards specify um, that they get used on just an Uruk-hai. So
Hmm.
then a lot of those events and conditions and things like that can still be used by the Uruk-hai culture from Shadows onward, which is quite interesting.
They also get used on the Sauron Uruk-hai, the ones from Carathungol,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, that's right.
honestly, I think that the game should have leaned into having more of that. But unfortunately, I think
Right.
that Decipher, for the most part, they targeted in it, at least in the first block or so, they for the most part targeted race instead of culture, and then later on, whenever there was a situation where, oh well, now that means you can cross cultural boundaries, at that point they would start being overly specific and saying that this only works for the Gondor man or whatever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I think it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, it made it a lot less. Well, in some ways, it makes it more controllable so that things don't get out of hand.
Hmm.
Um, this is going to be interesting. So we got a Desperate Defense of the Ring on Frodo here. Oh, he's getting. He didn't want to discard his hand, and he paid the price by getting 3 burdens. Okay, Enduring Evil. This is where Frodo can save him if he needs to, but he does have events, yeah, so that'll work.
First, no Sando skirmish, except for to replace. Okay.
So Frodo is kind of like your, save your ring bearer or save your other friends if you need to, and then these copies of No Visitors, which is there's one in his hand right now. That lets you transfer a follower from a hobbit to your support area to cancel a skirmish. So the big thing right now is that he hasn't found any of the followers in this deck, but that's basically the key setup is that you're just canceling a whole bunch of skirmishes and just trying to stay alive essentially.
And
But it lets
interestingly,
you sneak pretty
Frodo's
effectively.
the way that Frodo is set up, that kind of makes him not immune to desperate defense, but allows him to dodge it, because that only triggers on assignment and not replacement. So
That's right. That's a really good point. Huh. Yeah, the other synergy with that deck is that every time you assign Bilbo to a skirmish, you get to pull no visitors back from the discard pile by exerting them.
yeah.
So that's how that deck kind of stays alive and stays relevant.
So here's one of those
Okay,
followers.
so there's a follower. Yeah,
Oof. Although it's going to cost 5 to use every time, but
yeah. I really just yeah. Yeah, it's just something to pop on there if you need it. Okay, so everyone's got their weapons now, which is good. Is fine. You can just put him on Sam. Can't be overwhelmed unless he's tripled because you can spot Frodo and Smeagol. That's a nice safe trip into Site 6 there. Makes his appearance. So a lot of this Rohan side is using weapons or items that get discarded, and then it has a lot of synergies to bring them back from the discard pile. So you're constantly bringing bows and spears and shields and various things back from the discard pile, and healing your guys and canceling skirmishes with helms and all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of a more abstract setup for Rohan, which is traditionally just put a bunch of mounts and spears on people and overwhelm them with skirmish events. So this one I tried to make it a bit more of a finessing deck where you have to really plan how you're going to use your weapons, and then Gambling here has the ability to have weapons transferred over to him, which is also quite interesting. So there's a lot of shenanigans that you can pull off. So yeah, he basically just recurred that helm twice, or transferred it once and then recurred it from the discard pile to cancel the skirmish.
Hmm.
So very fun synergy in that deck. I personally would like to try it out in one of the leagues if we run this again, and just see how it works.
Yeah, that's an interesting setup.
So one of the things with this Smeagol is that it has a bit of struggle against the Inquaya Burdens because it has the regroup ability where you can uh, add 2 burdens to discard all the minions in the regroup phase, which can set up a double move. But if burdens are getting to a scary point, it's pretty hard to use that ability. We're setting up the skirmish canceling. Okay, so I've Barad-dûr is
Oh,
interesting, but okay, he's got Sting. I forgot about that,
yeah,
so
Baggins
that'll keep
Heirlooms
him
pumping
safe.
up the ring bearer.
Yeah, nice clutch save there, and then we'll use a no visitors here to not die to the siege troop. Thank you, Gondorian Stewart. Okay, so he's going to stay at 7, which makes sense. You got to wonder, is he going to be able to double, or is that going to be stuck at 8 on the next turn?
Yeah, we'll have a better follower next time. That's not going to cost him quite so much, but for the double, because that.
Yeah, the scary thing is adding a burden though. That's the part that can get you into trouble.
I guess he's got to pick his poison then.
Yeah. Okay, so Mary's using his sword to wound up all these guys, and then maybe he'll shoot them in the archery phase. Yeah. So because he's at a plain sight, it's going to be 2 archery wounds for that javelin. And I think that's a second javelin that was just used. Oh no, Rohirrim bow. Okay. So he's going to kill all these minions with archery effects, which I think is very underrated in this deck. And it's hard to see it on first glance that it has this much synergy and an ability to kill minions with the sword that Mary's sword exerting twice to do a bunch of wounds, and then the archery. So yeah, he's got a pretty easy double in here, and he's basically saying, "Hey, you really have to be able to double from 7 to 9 if you're going to win this game." Okay, there's the one you really want. So you can discard cards from hand and then draw that many cards again when you attach it. And the biggest thing is that it adds resistance, and it doesn't cost anything except for 2 Twilight as an aid cost. So that's really your best follower in this deck.
Yeah.
So he's going to cycle out all his shadow cards, I'm sure, yeah, because he knows he needs to get there. He needs to get to site 9 on this turn. Right, so he used the Gondorian Servant because he doesn't want to add any burdens. Right, took a wound there. Yeah, this is a bit of a scary situation here, but he's gonna... Okay, he's healing first with Frodo's Cloak, and then he's gonna use a Marvel to save Sam. My guess is he's going to exert Bilbo here to get another copy of No Visitors into hand. Or maybe a Marvel. Might be actually an interesting call for a double, but No Visitors makes sense.
Yeah, may
So
as well do
cancel the
that
skirmish
straight up
there.
cancel, yeah.
Yeah, now he's going to use Smeagol's effect to discard all the minions. Add 2 burdens to discard each minion. And this is the make or break here, because the site is going to add a burden every time he kills somebody. Yeah, and there's the fear. He hit the 5 burdens, and Quaya comes out, and this might just be too much to overcome, potentially. Although, okay, he can prevent a wound
nice
here with nice
yeah.
imitation. This is actually really interesting, because he's got 2 No Visitors in hand.
Yeah, but one of
So,
those followers just
okay,
went
so he gets
away, so he's only got 1 follower.
yeah. Yeah, so that's it. And he can't prevent the burden from Desperate Defense of the Ring, and that puts him up to 7 or 8, whatever it is.
Well, a nail-biting finish for that one.
Yeah, that one's fun. It's just tough to sneak in there against Inquaya because those burdens just pile up at the end. But against other shadows, this is a very viable Free People side. So well played by Snazman there to put himself in a situation where he forced a double.
Alright, so it's going to be Demaz versus Domgam, and then the Faker versus Snazman. And then TMS versus Botnik. And I think the rest is going to be dropped at this point.
Yeah, that's all of it. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see that Smeagol and Frodo in action again. Hopefully they can sneak their way to Site 9 this time. I'm trying to remember, what was TMS's shadow side? Is he playing in Quay? Well, I guess we'll find out right away anyway, but... Yeah, it is, okay. Yeah, this is always the scary part for the Frodo deck, is that you don't really often have any protection on your first move, and so you're just hoping you don't get blown up by a big minion on Site 1, or Site 2, I should say.
I'm going to speed this up a little bit.
We got the condition that lets him cancel a skirmish, I believe. Okay, Desperate Defense of the Ring. Yeah, so you can discard it to cancel a skirmish. Desperate Defense of the Ring on Sam is an interesting choice, and probably a good one, because he's kind of your companion that you're going to assign things to just to take wounds if you can survive without using No Visitors or any canceling effects.
This time well, I guess that's another burden adder. So he's already
adds burdens, but it also, yeah, it lets you take No Visitors into hand. But yeah, this is not a great situation. He can draw Tom Bombadil, which can remove 2 burdens, which is helpful. But it is a bit rough having 4 burdens already at Site 4. Okay, there's Brace of Conies. That'll remove...
There's Tom.
Okay. And there's Tom to get rid of 2 more. So he'll be down to 1 again. If he... Well, he didn't use the Brace of Conies, but it's alright. Alright, this is going to be... Hopefully he... Well, he can always use Tom Bombadil or... yeah, Tom to cancel the skirmish if he needs to, or maybe he has No Visitors in hand.
Well, he probably... Okay. I think he just used Tom to get No Visitors, and then...
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
a neat little
he's
combo.
doing all right, but it's always, you get to those 5 burdens and you are in trouble.
Here's a great example of Decipher trying to iterate on an old mistake, with Aragorn's bow being such an enormously powerful tool. Um, they'd shifted things all the way down to, well, you can get +1 archery total for 2 cards, 2 specific cards.
Yeah, which like most of the time you're going to be playing them anyway, so it's a almost useless ability and a very expensive cost for a +1 essentially.
Yeah. And doesn't make you archer by
Yeah,
default, unlike Aragorn's bow. Like, it's, yeah. You see the same sort of pattern with Greenleaf, where they tried and, I don't know about failed, but I don't think that they ever were able to come up with a Greenleaf that, uh, you know, was more appealing than the original that could replace it. At least not until rotation
right.
forced them out.
You're right, exactly. Which isn't the worst thing. Like rotation is there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I know people don't really like it, but it's usually a necessary evil in card games.
Yeah, you need
Okay,
some
so he
sort
got
of
to
lever
use
to
the ring as
pull. Whether
mine.
it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying he was using the ring as mine because the burden was added from the follower being
Oh,
moved over,
interesting.
so now we're up to 4.
Triggering off of his opponent's own usages.
His own tricks. Yeah. Yeah, this is looking a bit tough for Botnik here. Because I assume we're going to see a lot more companions soon on the Aragorn side of things.
Okay. Direct assignment.
Hmm. Yeah, these companions are just big, but he does get a kill there, so he gets a stop out of it. It's substantial. Now, it feels like if Botnik's going to have a chance here, he needs to double from 6 to 8, because you don't want to have to double into 9 against the Inquaya deck. So you kind of need to find a way to get through this site and then survive on 8 as well. Ooh, this is a big guy who can pump himself up to 23, but in
Oh,
the end,
Tom
yeah,
coming
we're
in
just going to
clutch.
cancel
Yeah.
that.
Right at the very end, he
Yeah,
wouldn't be able to have much enough vitality
yeah,
to
and then
help.
he's going to narrow escape. Narrow escape to clear the minion, and okay, there's a double. Barren, I think it's barren land is the condition that just exerted all ring-bound companions, which is substantial here. Okay, so now it is pretty relevant that Bilbo's exhausted. Okay, so he ends up using uh, the replace effect in a way that you recommended, where you don't have to pay the desperate defense of the ring cost. So he assigned Inquaya to Smeagol and then moved him over in the skirmish phase to Frodo and killed off Frodo there.
A good
I don't know if I
dodge.
like killing Frodo there. I think I would have just killed off Bilbo.
Yeah, especially since you've got the ability to recur events over here. He's not offering as much as Frodo would.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Frodo can like the whole purpose of Frodo is to save your ring bearer at the end if you need it. So yeah, this is interesting though. Oh, it might just be that his Uruks might not be able to make a big enough splash here to get a stop. Maybe he's not planning to double if he's cycling all these events out of his hand.
Yeah, that's. Hmm.
Which I kind of get. You only have 3 companions. You don't have any Frodo protection. Uh, okay, so we gave him muster to cycle his hand a little bit there. Okay, well this is for all the marbles again.
3 going down, and there's a ring is mine to add another burden if Tolman Cotton gets used.
Oh no.
And that puts him
Yeah,
right at
here we go. And
5. And then
that's
Nquaya's
gonna be
going to eat
game.
someone alive. Yep.
Oh, that's painful.
Kaboom.
Yeah, it's just a tough matchup. It really is.
And then every
And that's
time
gonna
someone
be game
dies, you
right
add a
there on the
burden.
burdens.
Honestly, so hang on a moment. I think, and maybe it wouldn't have made any difference, but this guy offers plus resistance. It seems like it's almost like he threw it on Bilbo just out of frustration. But like, if you put it on Smeagol, then at least you don't immediately get corrupted. But I guess it doesn't really make a difference because as soon as it comes off in the regroup phase, you'd be gone.
Well, but you don't have to go. Like, you'd win the game because there is no regroup phase.
Oh, that's right. Yes, yes. This isn't PC formats.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
right.
it is very relevant to add those 3 to Smeagol at Site 9 sometimes.
Yeah. So I don't know if he would have had enough tricks to get through this much strength.
Yeah, it's doubtful. He needed to be able to cancel those skirmishes uh, with his no visitors copies. So he probably needed to draw that one from the discard pile.
So
And
actually, I think that
yeah, in
losing
the end,
Frodo the way that he did last phase or last sight may have made the difference here, because Bilbo was exhausted and Frodo was not, right? So
right. Yep.
that would have changed the
Yeah.
dynamic significantly if you still had if you had 2 companions right now here and you had that follower on Smeagol to give him the resistance.
Yeah.
Huh.
There was definitely some other lines that would have made it quite interesting to see how it would finish out there. But yeah, I still have faith in that deck against other shadows. And even against Inquaya, it's very difficult, but it is possible. But you do have to get a bit lucky, I think.
All right,
Okay,
the
so the
Faker versus
Faker against
Snazman.
Snazman.
Let's zoom through some of the setup.
Right, Boromir and Inquaya versus Mary and I think Inquaya as well, if I remember right. Turn 1, Desperate Defense of the Ring. That's nice. Although there's not really a good person to put it on
Yeah,
down there
I
because
was gonna
he
say
doesn't.
normally that would be an incredible pull, but he doesn't have any good companions out. These are all just fodder that are gonna get
Yeah,
sacrificed.
exactly. Like he's gonna pull his Boromir eventually, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I wish I still had that for him. Yeah, so another Inquaya Shadow Mirror. I'll have to run this as another league at some point so that we can see whether the balance has affected anything or if it's still, too much in Quaya that we're going to run into and nothing else is viable. But
one of the
sometimes you need
lessons that
a
I've
full league.
one of the lessons that I've picked up is that balance is at least half perception. And so if people still perceive Nquea as the best one, you're still going to see people going for it, even if
Yep.
it has been nerfed to the point where it's not quite as good as it was when it earned its reputation. You have to kind of
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
almost over nerf in some cases, or sometimes do like they call them attention buffs to other situations where you
Right.
just do a very minor change to something else, but then it draws attention to it, and people say, "Hey, this is actually not as bad as I thought it was."
Yeah. It's interesting too because then if you know everyone's playing in Quaya, you can just play Gandalf or Sam and do quite well against that shadow. So there's always a meta that evolves in these sealed leagues as well, and I think people like to I don't want to say overreact, but react at least to what they see immediately in the league,
Hmm.
but there's just so much analysis that can be done, especially in a league like this where there's 18 different decks to choose from, essentially. The different combinations you can come up with to gain advantage over what you expect to see is going to be half the battle.
And very often, what people are reacting to is people's first knee jerk reaction, right? Because in the first few days
Yep.
of the league, you're just seeing what everybody happens to think, but you're not going to see everybody. You're not going to see the evolution as time goes on. Yeah, it's like I said, perception's half the battle. It's
Yep. Definitely. And it's the same with the Decipher starter decks, like you
mm,
see a lot of people think certain things are the only way to go in some of the sealed leagues, but you can win with most of those decks in a lot of the leagues. You just have to play different strategies, or yeah, just play it a little differently sometimes. Okay, he finally found some Boromirs, but is he going to go up past? Probably doesn't want to risk it. Yeah, because he knows he'll get hit with Inquea and he'll just lose them right away. So being so far ahead on the sight path, you can stay at 6. He's going to kill off somebody here, and then he can play his Boromir next turn. So this will let him prevent the Burden from the Wisp of Pale Sheen. Kill off his Arwen there, so he can play Boromir next turn. Yeah, he's looking very set up here. Very, very set up. This has to be a double to 5, or else it won't even be a competitive game at that point. So, okay, loading up on cards, needs to find as much as he can, understandably. And that's a scary one, though. So, okay, he's going to use Mary's Sword.
oh
Okay,
man, this
exert
is
a
one of those.
minion, and
There's a whole
then
cycle of these that made you exert two different characters of different cultures, and that cycle didn't get used a whole lot, but here it came in clutch.
so he was able to exhaust that minion, and then ends up canceling the skirmish with the helm. So that was nice maneuvering. Pretty hard to double against it. So yeah, and you're still in a world of trouble being at site 4, and your opponent is moving to 7. Like you can't catch him at this point. He can single move all the way, which is likely what I expect we're going to see is a pretty easy walk one at a time to site 9. Your main hope here is that you can get the burdens up to 5 and then get a shadow kill. That's really all you're aiming for if you're Snazman right now. Okay, so he's identifying that the Orc Officer is a potential problem card, and he's going to make sure he can kill him off. Okay, Enduring Evil. Is that going to be enough? It's not with the pump.
That's a nice self
Yeah,
combo
so
too. Blade of Gondor and then healing himself up.
yeah. Yeah, just a free wound if you're going to win the skirmish. Yeah. Frodo takes care of him with the frying pan. Yeah, it was very, very well played by Faker here. Basically took what could have been a scary burden situation and made it almost harmless.
I think that this kind of event, where most of the decks are curated for the most part, is really highlighting how many like cool cards do exist in the Shadows ecosystem. Because an era of the game that a lot of people completely write off, and for understandable reasons. But there's still a lot of good stuff in here. Um, really makes me want to take another look at trying to get that stuff imported into a more sane format. And I guess by its nature, this couldn't include all the crazy stuff from Expanded. So Nelson, you there? Did I lose connection? Oops, hang on. I think I lost my co-host here. Let's see if we can get him reconnected. In the meantime, looks like there's some comments in chat here. Botnik, you'll see why I did not do it. Uh-oh, I have no idea what that was responding to. +3 resistance does not matter against Nquea. It doesn't matter for the purposes of preventing him from using his ability, but from the perspective of trying to not get corrupted, it would have. And that's really the difference there. That if you'd had Frodo and Smeagol with the +3 resistance there, he wouldn't have instantly died to the corruption. And then if you had a way of threading the needle and surviving the minions, then that's a possible line to victory. And then Botnik says, I think an overlooked reason to pick Nquea is the modularity. You will most likely pull some decent Sauron cards. You're less likely to pull Corsairs or Mamics or Mumax. Also, it keeps the companion count under 6, which is always great in sealed. That's why limited without Nquea run every companion they can find. Yeah, that's a very good point. Hang on a second. Am I just losing audio? No, I have audio. Nelson, if you can hear me, you're not there. You should try disconnecting and reconnecting. The dynamic duo can't go on as a solo act.
Okay, can you hear me again?
Ah, yes I can.
Okay, I just gave up on my computer. I don't know what happened. My everything just went completely crappy, and I'm on my phone now, so that'll work.
Awesome. Yeah, for
Sorry about
for a moment I was like, wait a minute, like have I offended him? He's not saying anything back, and then
No, not at all. I don't know what happened. It just I started getting all these pop-up messages being like, "Your mic's not working," and then I unplugged the mic, and it was like, "No, we still can't do anything." Disconnected, reconnected, nothing. So I just went, "Oh, screw it. Let's get on my phone."
okay. Let's see here. Where were we? So, the last thing I said that I never heard a response from was talking about how there's some really cool cards in the expanded era that events like this are really highlighting, right? And so it really kind of invigorates me a bit to try and get some of that stuff pulled into a more sane format because there's some neat stuff here.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting combinations. Like for some of these leagues that I made, at one point when I was feeling very motivated, I went through every card in Decipher and made a list for every culture of weird cards that could have interesting synergies or cards that I've never used that are playable. Obviously, I don't want cards like light-footedness or just useless stuff, but I made this massive list, and as I create leagues, I kind of just go through these lists of interesting cards and try to find ways to work them in. Um, and so, yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in Expanded that people don't really know about or haven't used yet because most of us don't play past movie block. Maybe I shouldn't say most of us. A lot of us, I'll say, don't play past
Well,
movie block
I,
most
I
of the
I
time.
think it's justified when nowadays expanded makes up something like 7% of all games played or less.
Right.
I think that I think you may be accurate there. But
Yeah.
yeah, like like the cool stuff that's there, like Decipher didn't necessarily completely evaporate all at once, and so they continue to release some neat stuff in those sets. It's just that with the changes to the site path and the changes to the cultures and people's perception that a lot of it was based on being money grubbing or whatever. Like, people didn't necessarily give it a shot, and even if they do give it a shot, sometimes it gets completely overshadowed by some of the busted stuff that is there. So
Right.
yeah, I think that's one of the things that the PC will have to try and do is salvage some of this really good stuff and extract it from the context of the anchor that is the rest of expanded, pulling it down.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I enjoy a lot with making these leagues is that I can take a lot of these expanded cards and then still use
Mm-hmm.
multipath or a king site path. So we don't have all the craziness of site replacement and a lot of the mechanics that people didn't like about the new site path. And I still, obviously work in expanded sites here and there because it can add some complexity to some of the leagues. But being able to use expanded cards without expanded sites is often a really enjoyable experience in the leagues.
Yeah. And so it's almost like you're kind of prototyping what exactly a theoretical format like this could look like, right? Where we've got the
Hmm.
more sane site paths and whatnot, but with just the cool cards sprinkled in. Um, yeah, we'll definitely have to put some more effort into that at some point.
Yeah, it'll be really cool if we can come together with something that enhances the PC leagues.
Yeah, I was looking at this card too in particular. I was like, that looks like something that would be nice to have for the across our land. I could see how that would totally work
Hmm.
with the possession bouncing that you were talking about.
Yeah, there's some really cool possession bouncing stuff that came in for Rohan in the expanded era, and I think there's another deck for a different league that I came up with that is just discarding possessions from your hand predominantly, and then sort of recurring them to your hand again. So it's interesting to be able to play Rohan in a way that's not just put all the possessions on the Rohan companions and let them win all the fights and then
Right.
kill the minions with their exertions and yada yada yada. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to find a way to make Rohan be creative still because it's such a linear strategy through most of the sets. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to put interesting things together that people haven't seen, new experiences. So sometimes it works, and other times it falls flat on its face. But
I
got
mean,
to keep trying.
I think that there's a lot of people that would say that the sealed events that are going on are some of the most exciting things that are happening right now. So I'm sure that lots of people appreciate it. Um,
Yeah, and that's perfect. That's as long as people are enjoying it, I'm happy to keep making these things. Um, so is it, if they ever start flopping, then I might reconsider because it does take me a lot of time to put these together. But yeah, if we have the chance to keep having new experiences that people are enjoying, then I'll contribute to that happily.
right on. So we kind of lost the thread here on this particular game, but I think it went exactly the way that you predicted. That the faker here was able to start just stepping forward, and then with his big fellowship here at the end, he was able to just stonewall any of the minions that came in and managed to get a pretty solid win on Site 9. So
Yeah, nice.
now let's hop over to Dmaz versus Dongam. Domgam.
Yeah, and Domgam is a player that already got an invitation. I think it was in the second event. So he's going to be in the Sealed Masters final. So he's kind of just playing with house money at this point, just having a good time, practicing with the decks in case this might be a format that gets used in the final. I actually haven't even decided what I'm going to do for the final. It's going to be one of the 8 decks or one of the 8 leagues from this event, but yeah, I have yet to decide. So it's good to get practice with all of them.
Basmelis has been doing something similar with all of the World Championship circuit events, where he's already got his invitation guaranteed from last year, but he's just entering every event and completely smoking everybody.
He's such a good player. It's awesome. And a great guy too. Very friendly, very polite. I always like his recap videos.
Oh, his videos are
They're
great.
insightful and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's a very, very great player. That's for sure.
Oh,
So
looking
this
at
is
chat.
again.
Chat says high electrical temperature. Says, "Oh, cool, nice to see you streaming." Well, thanks for tuning in. We hope to do more of
Hey,
this kind of stuff.
yeah. Hopefully you didn't come in right when I was disconnected and we were in our pause. But Okay, early desperate defense of the ring on Sam. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Dimas has a very good understanding of how to play against this Inquaya side. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he
Oh,
used the same Sam fellowship. That's pretty big.
yeah,
Okay,
losing
killing
that
off
Tolman right
Tolman.
there at the end, right there at the beginning when desperate defense has only just gone down. That's a nasty surprise because that was established earlier what a good combo that is to counter that desperate defense. But
Yeah, it was a good choice to uh use the Enduring Evil in that matchup there. But yeah, Dimas has a good understanding of this because he used this same fellowship side, if I recall correctly, during the league, and there was a lot of people playing in Quaya, so he's got a lot of practice already knowing how to navigate it.
in an
Oh,
event
I
like
think
this,
I'm
going into in a mirror match definitely yeah, definitely gives you a bit of an advantage knowing it, being able to rely on your own experience of what the weaknesses of the deck are.
hmm I'm just realizing that Dimas is the player at the bottom. I was assuming he was at the top. They're
Yep.
both playing the same Freep side, but
Yeah, this particular one does happen to be from his perspective.
yeah, which really makes sense why he used the Enduring Evil there because he knows the value of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So this is interesting. Going into the site 4 here, where you can utilize the burdens in skirmishes, you might actually end up doing that because it's hard to get the Sam deck up all the way to 5 burdens anyway. So it might be worthwhile to make sure you win skirmishes, or if you can get an overwhelm, at
Yeah.
least that might be a valuable thing to do. Looks
Or
like
hang on, two burdens were added because of Rosie Cotton being. Hang on. Slow down here.
yeah,
So we have Rosie Cotton being assigned and adding. Well, you mentioned a moment ago how hard it is to get up to that point. She definitely contributed here. Um,
yeah,
and then the Ring is Mine being used to add a third burden. So now, boom, Domgam here is sitting at 5 burdens, and against a two strength individual, didn't need the pump for the overwhelm there. That that I
yeah.
think is a really bad turn for Dongam.
Yeah, Rosie Cotton is, you really don't want her skirmishing. She is just there to make it so that Sam can't be overwhelmed. Which maybe you don't even need that. Like Sam's pretty hard to overwhelm as is. It might be a card worth cutting if you have other viable companions to play. Because yeah, Rosie just in trying to help Sam has kind of put him in a rough spot here.
She's a secret shadow card, helping out the
Yeah,
opponent.
yeah, this is interesting because Dimas has his sudden fury loading up tokens already, and it's going to be pretty difficult to get through that condition with both Frodo and Sam bearing weapons. So yeah, Domgam might have to try to find a way to sneak the fifth burden on there, the 4 and 5. I guess he's only at 3, to have any real shot of doing some damage with his shadow.
And I think this is going to be a sacrificial Frodo. Yeah, got to get rid of those burdens. It's
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's looking a little beat up though now, down to 2. And if I recall correctly, he's not playing too many other companions. I think he was pretty Hobbit based off that deck list, if I recall correctly. And Dimas just kind of has a wealth of riches here. He can kill off things like Farmer Maggots and then play Boromir next turn. He might end up cycling his Eomer because he might not want to hold it that long.
yep, good call.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, there's the sudden fury for Domgam here. Yeah, the desperate defense of the ring is an interesting card because it can be really annoying when you want to keep your cards in hand. but it can be great when you want to cycle. So if you're happy to chuck, let's say he's just planning on trying to get a shadow kill, if he can chuck all these extra free people's cards in his hand without having to add Twilight with them, then it's actually it can be a helpful card at times.
Yeah. Botnik in chat says, makes sense. Sam was afraid of Rosie more than he was afraid of Shelob. So as far as Rosie being a shadow card, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to put together a league that uses Rosie and Shelob in the same side.
Sam's worst nightmare.
Yeah. Botnik is famous for his creative deck names, so if I can put something together, I'll let him name that deck.
You know, come to think of it, deck names are one thing that we don't really have much on these sorts of reports. One of the reasons for it is because some people do use some, rather vulgar names for their for their decks. So
Right.
I tend to not want to have to go through the trouble of filtering anything out. But there is something lost when people can't at least submit a safe for work name for them, because some people do get pretty creative with them, as you say.
Yeah, some of them were pretty fun. My working title for the Witch King deck was "The Witch King Hates Men," because there's so many cards that just do extra damage to the race of man. So kind of fun, but in the end, I just got rid of that and left it as Witch King and easy names.
One of the April Fool's years that we did had a Witch King misogynist um, deck or a card, and same sort of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. There's Sudden Fury saving the day. Interesting that he's choosing to add the burden there. You're almost at the point where you're probably not gonna get the burdens on Sam anyway, so there might not be a point to it, but okay, so clearly he's going for the double here, which makes total sense
Yeah.
with a bajillion tokens.
On Sudden Fury,
I don't
yeah,
know how
that's
you can, and with Boromir that's untouched. Oh, and with Narrow Escape in hand.
narrow escape, and then he uses Simple Living to heal everybody up. Yeah, that's
Let's look prevent that, no problem. Yeah, this is looking that's looking like curtains. Helpless is an interesting addition to the deck.
it would definitely come in handy for some of these, especially with Great Elf Warrior now losing access to his strength, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, so they're doing these events back and forth trying to kill Frodo, because if Sam's game text doesn't apply and Frodo dies, then. But like you
Yeah, then
said,
that's it.
there's just way too many
Yeah,
things
he's
here.
he's not getting through there. Yeah, when you can just safely assign everybody to Frodo, it's there's nothing much you can do
He
there.
didn't even use any of them, just flexing and saying, "Yeah, I could,
Yeah.
I could."
And then let's get rid of
Yeah,
Inquea
let's
with
just discard him.
thing.
Yeah. That was a flex fest there at the end. I didn't need any
Yeah.
of these pumps. You didn't make me dig deep at all.
That was a pretty convincing win for DMAZ against a really strong player in Domgam, so really well played there.
All right, and so now we're on to round 3. Let's see how many of these games are still
So
here, because I know some people did end up dropping. So
right.
it's DMAZ versus Snazman, Domgam versus Botnik, and the Faker versus TMS. All right, well,
All right, sweet.
I guess we still have 3
Everyone
matches to
was
go through then.
Yeah, everyone was happy enough to play all the rounds, so that's good.
Well, all the people that could make it in anyway. I'll need to
Right.
try and add some guardrails onto the startup stuff so that we don't have those issues again. But
Yeah, well, you got it going though, so that was good. At least we still got it. Didn't have to really reschedule, so that's a
yeah.
victory in my books. So interesting here, the Faker's only bidding 1 this time. I think previously he was bidding 2.
I think the strength of the burden adding is probably pumped the brakes on just about everyone, actually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
nice
also may
little
have just been
Easterling in there
habit,
to get a
right?
burden.
You go in and, it's pretty standard in most constructed events to bid 2 or 3. But then Inquea comes out and says, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Okay, gets a kill, gets an extra burden with Gleaming in the Snow. So okay, decent start for TMSS2. Aragorn with his sword is good. Okay. Oh, now does he have anything to save someone? Yeah, he does. Okay, concealment will be the +1 that he needs. But yeah, since they're both playing Gondor, there's going to be a decent amount of burden potential here. And he doesn't double, which is it's always scary when you go second and your opponent gets to 3 and then you have to stop at 2, because you're falling behind pretty quick then, and you often have to double through the first sanctuary then.
And that can be scary at any point. Needing to give up
Yeah.
those 5 heals, that's pretty devastating.
Yeah, someone who plays the double from 2 to 4 extremely well is Schuler. Very, very good player. And he's really good at setting things up. And then next thing you know, he's right on your tail again and passing you, and he's way more set up than you are. And he plays that double extremely well.
Yeah.
Okay, so got the kill there. Oh, Knight's Mount didn't have a target because it's only
Right.
for
Only for
hitting
unassigned
someone not
minions.
assigned to
Yeah.
a skirmish. But still able to clear that. Wisp of Pale Sheen to avoid the burden. Oh, okay. This is interesting.
Inquest
Just
says, what are you
volunteering 6
doing?
companions. Yeah.
Say goodbye to your Wraith, I guess. Yeah, both
Well,
of
I don't know. Like this is similar where he could just wound up Aragorn and then leave 6. Which I think if he does that, okay, no, he's just gonna kill.
yeah.
I think if he did leave 6, then TMSS just kills off the Wraith anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting that he didn't double there though. That felt like he needed to.
There goes his whole hand, including his other copy of Inquea.
Yeah. Yeah, the full hand discard is very relevant. Plus, if you have anyone that keys off of initiative on the shadow side, it can be pretty scary too.
Now, Darafin, was this one that was included, or was that a pull that he had? Because this guy is
Ooh.
a pretty big staple in constructed.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of Devorian or Devorin. Because Devorin is the one that if you have 4 cards in hand, you can discard a minion in the regroup phase, but Darafin just gets rid of what engines and possessions.
Yeah, and I guess that's more relevant in constructed because you do have ground and whatnot to deal with, and there's not really any possessions, support area possessions in this one to worry about.
Yeah, nothing too much. It's kind of just a extra Gondor man for this deck.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a condition because that could have been relevant. There have been a few of these shadow conditions, but I
Yeah.
guess not. My mistake.
Well, okay, so here TMSS was able to double, which was nicely done, clearing the board of minions, and he's caught up on the sight path now, which is huge. So, especially given the current state of things, he doesn't have too many wounds. Like if he plays a 5th companion here, he's not heavily damaged, whereas the Faker already has a lot of wounds on his fellowship, and Boromir might save him a little bit with that. But he still might need to stop and heal. So we'll see how this plays out. Now the Sight 6 is that's gonna be pretty big. So he can double through that Sight 6 and heal all of his Gondor companions. So That's going to be, well, it's going to be enticing to try, but I don't know if he can double against that. Yeah,
No.
tough to get through that 21 strength minion. Okay, and Quaya, interesting. And still going to get cleared. Interesting. Oh, no double. I think that was the moment right there for TMSS to move up to 7, and then you can set up that 7 to 9 move and potentially win the game.
Yeah, we could definitely see it in Faker's hand here. That I think that would have definitely been the play to make, like you said. But
Yeah, and obviously hard to know what's in your opponent's hand. It's much easier for us commentating to say, "Oh wow, that was an opportunity."
right,
But yeah, certainly when you're clearing the Inquaya like that, you got to think, "Hey, maybe it's the time to jump in the lead on the site path here."
yeah.
Okay, last throw, which is just being cycled. He's not actually going to double.
So this is another situation where the double desperate defense on Aragorn might be the call
Yeah, I think
instead of
so.
because Aragorn's already proven that no, they're spreading it around again. Because Aragorn's already proven that he can take anybody on. So
Yeah, I think you really want to double up there. Well, there you go though. He did get up to 5 burdens. But does he have any Inquayas left to play? That's the thing.
yeah, I think he's already burned through 3 of them. So unless he drew another in his
Right.
stuff, and in fact we can't. Oh, we can't see the discard pile. Well, we can see Faker's discard pile anyway because
Yeah, so
this
he has
is.
played all 3 of his.
But we haven't. Darn it. I
Yeah.
feel like that's one of the annoyances with the decipher formats, with it being well, this isn't even really a decipher format. Maybe we should just change it so that sealed leagues always or sealed leagues and sealed events always have the open discard pile as well.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to have a discussion on that if we're going to make that change because I think some people would oppose it for sure.
Well, people will oppose anything that does any sort of change, but when you look at it
Yeah.
objectively, I think that it's a pretty dumb limitation. No other game does that. Not
Yeah.
not Magic, not Pokemon, not Yu-Gi-Oh. Like it's just
Right. Yeah, like what's the point?
yeah. Especially on a digital situation like GIMP, where the log is going to show you everything anyway.
Yeah. This is interesting though. So Faker wasn't able to double to 9 here. So TMSS is getting another chance. That's a good South Round commander though. That's going to force him most likely to discard one of his companions. So if you can spot 6, he gets to assign it to Frodo unless you discard someone. So you have to get rid of the Ranger there. Okay, so make him -1, -2, -3.
Hmm.
Okay, no.
Gleaming in the Snow is actually one of the cards that really pushed me to change up the way that regroup ending works with PC formats.
Hmm.
Because that's one of those hail marys that if you're just one burden away, and I had a Gleaming in the Snow in my hand, why can't I? Why can't I use it?
Yeah, I will say burden strategies have they're a lot more prominent in PC formats now, which I think is good. I think the game was designed to have 3 ways to win the game,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the time it feels like there's only 2. So it's nice to have that third one having to be considered when you're deck building.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a
So
pretty handy win here from the Faker.
yeah, Faker was able to get the stop with his shadow and prevent the double to 9. And yeah, after that it's simple walk, simple walk into Mordor.
Appropriate.
Okay, so this is
You know what?
Okay,
That's a voice line
Domgam.
that I need to add to my soundboard here. Is one does not simply walk into Mordor.
Yeah.
That would be a great addition.
I've always wanted, the wrapping paper that has the pictures of Boromir on it, and it says it is a gift.
Oh,
That's what I want to get, but I just keep looking at it every Christmas online, and I think I just can't spend that amount of money on wrapping paper.
on something that you're going to intentionally rip up. Yeah,
Yeah, like we're gonna look at it for about 3 seconds, and
it's going to
like
be a
my
great
son's
joke, and
turning
then
4.
yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't know the joke yet. He doesn't care. It would just be for me to enjoy something on Christmas morning. I'm excited to see. I feel a little bad for Botnick here. He gets 3 games, and all 3 of them are against Inquea. So it's gonna be a tough ask for him to pull something off here. Okay, yeah, still even with making the minion -2, still loses his Sam immediately, which is somewhat of the common problem with the Frodo deck, is just the inability to set up on turn 1 often leads to losing one of your companions immediately.
hmm.
The problem is it's hard to add much into that deck in terms of space, and it has to be a ring-bound companion if you're going to add extra companions, because that ring bearer version of Smeagol discards, or I can't remember if it's discard or kills all the. Yeah,
Yeah,
put an
kills it.
unbound companion in
Yeah.
the dead pile. So he's not very forgiving to the regular folk. So let's see here. Yeah, a quick double to 4, or I guess it was a single because he doubled first for Domgam. So he's sitting pretty comfortably right now. Yeah, cancel the skirmish. Yeah, Botnick really needs to find the 2 followers that just add Twilight instead of adding burdens when they get transferred,
Hmm.
or he's going to run into a bunch of problems here. Okay, so Fatty Bolger goes
And
down
then
swinging,
all
and
the
it looks
threat
like we're going to
wounds
lose
on
another one.
Tolman. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and there's our good friend Rosie in
Yeah, I was gonna
hand.
say the Dark Lady herself.
Okay, here we go. I can't remember the name of that follower, but that's the one that you want. So the one attached to Frodo right now.
Robin
Yeah,
Smallhound.
Robin's. Yeah. So that one helps him cycle, helps him set up his hand, helps him find cards if he desperately needs something, and doesn't add burdens, which is probably the most important thing in this matchup. Yeah, he really needs to find that Tom Bombadil pretty quick to get rid of those 2 burdens.
Botnick in chat mentions a light in his mind is the card to add in this meta. That would
Yeah,
absolutely anybody who pulled that would blast their way through this whole event. I think.
I'm pretty hopeful though that as more and more people play this game, if everyone's expecting to see the Inquea side, that everyone just starts picking things that counter it, and then all of a sudden Inquea becomes less popular, and other things get sort of second chances at life, kind of like the Frodo deck would. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and the meta
I
marches
got to let
on.
it develop a little bit before I consider making more changes. Oh, there, she's being helpful this time. Thanks, Rosie. Taking an exertion for a Marvel to be played. Okay, this is going to be a big turn for Botnick here. He probably is wanting to get to 6 here so that he doesn't have the pressure of having to do 2 doubles in a row. But that's going to be
Interesting.
tough.
That
It's going to be
connected by
very
fate
tough.
could make a lot of differences here. There's a lot of events that have been played. So here, that
Yeah.
one costed 1 instead of 0, and The Ring is Mine costs some, I think. That could really mess up that whole strategy.
Yeah.
And with the added bonus of that +1 to everybody until the regroup phase.
Yeah, it is. It's nothing to scoff at for sure.
I say that, and I look over, and there's already a whole mountain of burdens on Smeagol, so maybe it won't make all that much of a difference. But
He desperately needs to find Brace of Conies or Tom Bombadil at this point.
mm-hmm.
But Domgam's getting pretty set up here now that he has possessions for everybody.
No Grima's to be seen. Not that it would have affected Sam
No,
anyway, but
true. Yeah. Okay, that was. I don't know if that was a misplay from Domgam, not knowing that his possession would be discarded from Mary.
which one?
This
Oh,
guy
okay,
here.
yeah.
So yeah, if you're skirmishing someone, what is it? Resistance 3 or less.
He's got 4
I feel like
though.
he shouldn't be. Yeah. What am I missing here?
Did a burden just get removed and we missed it? No? Puts resistance 3 or less, you may exert this menu. Yeah, that's not kosher. That may be a bug. Need to go
Yeah, I don't know. No, he's still fine. Great heart saves of the day. Yeah, hopefully we're just missing something. I'm trying to think of
I
why
mean
that would have been.
it's quite possible that it is a the card itself being bugged, because a lot of the all the post expanded cards got rewritten. And,
Right.
and so it is extremely possible that it was just a typo. There's been a small mountain of
Right.
errors of that nature. Is that the
Okay, he's
time to
gonna
do
play his
Enduring
Enduring
Evil?
Evil.
I mean, he was gonna die anyway, and with this many burdens, you kind of want to hold on to it.
Yeah. And then he still plays no visitors and
Yeah, and
stays
completely
alive.
no sells it. Yeah.
Yeah, he might just think, I just need free people's cards because I'm gonna win with my free people side. Yeah, he's looking tough to beat here. The only saving grace is that he hasn't drawn Sudden Fury. That's really the only thing that is really making me think there's a chance, but it's still going to be really tough to get through that Sam and Frodo. Interesting. Why is he putting the condition on Farmer Maggot?
Yeah.
Oh, it's unbound. It has to be unbound. That's why.
Yeah.
So it's either him or Mary. That makes more sense. Yeah, the Sam deck, it's very good against certain shadows, so pretty impressive. Yeah, and now there's not much that can be done for Botanic here now that he's 2 sites behind. Basically, just empty your hand of your free people's cards and try to mount some sort of swarm on a single move, but I don't see how that can be possible.
I don't know that Frodo was the one for that. Like we mentioned, there's a way for him to dodge it, and
Right. So Quay is going to make it so that Bilbo can't use his exert ability, although, okay, nice imitation being discarded to prevent the wound. Cancel one skirmish there, cancel the other skirmish there.
oh, Botnik in chat is saying that one Uruk wasn't glitched. It was not discarded by the Uruk. It was discarded by Broken Heirloom.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
And that one goes on someone who has resistance 4 or less, which is exactly what that Mary had. So
Perfect.
okay, so yeah,
Well,
manages to
thanks for being in the chat.
yeah, keeping us honest. So Botnik concedes at this point. I guess accepting that. Well, yeah, he's got nothing in deck, down to 7
Yeah.
cards in hand, and it's not a very encouraging set of cards here for either side, really.
Yeah,
All right.
well, going to be pretty tough to get through all the hobbits with a fool in hand as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, well played to Domgam there.
All right, and then we're on to
And
the very
now,
last match between Demaz and Snazman.
so I think if Dimaz wins this game, he'd go 3-0. Ooh, Sudden Fury on the
On
opening hand.
turn
That
1.
is going to be huge. Yep. That's tough to beat.
Not that he's using it at the moment, but
Yeah, it doesn't need it. It got to remove a burden with I can't remember what the name of that event is, but you play Exert Sam to make him +3, and if he wins the skirmish, you remove the burden. So that's a good play. Yeah, big army of Uden right off the bat. Okay, gets to save him though, but hard to double here. But you might still need to.
nope. He takes the stop.
I think if I were playing on that side, I would have just conceded that I'm gonna have to kill someone off there and try to keep up, stay at site 3, and cycle and try and find companions. Because you just don't want to fall too far behind, especially when you see Sudden Fury out turn 1. Like you're going to be having a difficult time getting through
Sudden Fury turn
this
1 and Teeth of
wall.
Mordor here in a moment, too. This guy.
Yep.
Yeah, Demaz is riding high here.
Yeah, this support area is nice and clutch in this last game. Yeah, and I just don't see how you're not going to get 5 burdens on Frodo unless things really break your way. And then he can still just kill off the Frodo at that point. So you got to keep up with your fellowship at this point. Hopefully he can go 2-4 and keep up here.
Now, Fortress Never Fallen is going to take care of that teeth at some point, I'm sure. So I think that's been neutered almost before it can
Yeah,
even get started.
that's true.
But to use
And it'll take
Fortress, you
care of
have to
the
actually win your skirmishes, and that has not been happening for Aomer.
right.
So, so maybe I spoke too soon.
Yeah, he'll want to get rid of those desperate defense of the ring for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Goes for Eowyn over Eomer. I guess Eomer as a splash companion, kind of like you were talking about, is not that great when he doesn't have possessions to pull.
Right. So discarding the hand to prevent the burdens. Kill off Fatty Bolger here. And he's going to be able to, yeah, add a burden with the Wisp of Pale Sheen there. Now, hopefully, is there a 5th companion? I think that's going to be important. There you go. Gamling's a good pull. Some weapons. The thing about this, you get a lot of tools with Rohan, but you're also adding a lot of Twilight with all the possessions.
Mm-hmm.
So you might get set up half decent, but you might just get smacked down by a big army in response. Okay, so
Both of
he's going
those
to use
bows
the
taking out the Sheen. Yeah, the
yeah,
Wisp.
interesting. And he heals. Bring some stuff back from discard. Looks like he's probably going to try and double here.
Nope.
No.
Just getting all set up. Kind of like you were talking about with all that Twilight. Spend everything and get it behind you, I guess.
Yeah, I just think you got to keep up when you're behind on Sudden Fury like this already. Yeah, like
So
he's moving into
which
6
circle is
here.
this? So this is the Gila Rohan companion one. So it could be possible that if he wants to.
Well, he's still stuck on 4 though, right? Like if he had doubled to 5 there, then he could have considered doubling through site 6 and getting the heal, but now he's just in he's way behind the 8 ball now. Yeah, and DMAZ is just cycling through his deck nice and quick, although both of them pretty much are 18 cards and 20 cards left in the draw decks.
Gotta draw every card and use every card.
Yeah, the more you cycle, the more you see, so it's always a good thing. Okay, so he's set up the ability to kill everything off in the archery phase here with a few exertions from Mary. And I truly mean a few.
Yeah. Quite a few, even.
Yeah. So, okay, so he's doubled here. You got to wonder, though, if he had been able to double to 5, or if he had chosen to double to 5, I think he would have been fine. And then would this have been able to double to 7 and have the lead here? It's quite possible. Okay, so returning Mary to his hand to play some weapons from his discard pile. It's a nice setup. The downfall to it is that now Mary has to clog your hand until the next Free People's turn for you.
Very timely Boromir here about to come out. It's just
Yeah,
going to be
this looks like
overkill
it's going
once
to be,
again. Yeah.
yeah, and he's got narrow escape in hand. He's going to be able to probably pretty easily double from site 6 to site 8, and then coast into the finish.
Yeah, ditches a desperate defense. He's not even worried about getting a shadow win anymore, I think. He's just going to keep pulling ahead further and further on the Fellowship side.
Yep. There goes that. Heal everybody. Oh, didn't want to heal everybody. Okay.
I think he wants to do it after he uses a Marvel. Oh, no, he pulled a Marvel and then discarded it? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, didn't want the burden. I guess that makes sense because he's at 4 right now. He doesn't want to have any risk of hitting that 5.
Yeah. And so
Oh, no,
now.
he's going to use it there.
And then Sudden Fury is going to let him get past that Slaughterer pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Just take a wound there, I would think. And then just get your token back. But either way, I don't think he's in any trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's playing this deck extremely well, I have to say. I think people underestimate the strength of Sam in this deck and just how good it is at doubling and staying alive.
Yeah. So we have Horse, Great Stature. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty the Rohan deck is a pretty interesting
He didn't play anything.
fellowship.
That was him. Oh well,
No,
both of them are down to nothing in their deck. Okay, so
yeah,
and I guess there was no point in him doubling.
right. Yeah, couldn't get to 9 anyway, so no point moving twice.
So you may as well bank on your shadow hand. And this is a pretty decent shadow setup for one last hurrah. Not quite enough to get all 5, but
Yeah, really, really needed that extra burden. Yeah, the file to make it so that Orc Officer can't do any tricky business.
not that it matters. He's only got 1 card in hand. Unless that card is an Enduring Evil, there wasn't anything that
True.
any sort of surprise. Well, I suppose
I know it's
there's an
getting an
overwhelm
overwhelm
there.
there.
Yeah, if the officer had been available. Oh, that was
Yeah. Oh, it still has
still has Tolman
Pullman
out.
Cotton. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
still have Sam on the
that's
table,
a tough
so
fellowship. Fellowship to beat with the Inquia deck, so pretty interesting.
yeah. So maybe this will be the kick in the pants that people need to see that Inquia isn't the be all end all here.
No, the
It can be
Inquia
beat.
is it's great to go up against the Gondor decks with it, but certainly it's not invincible.
In fact, out of all of
So
these,
yeah,
didn't we only have 1 or 2 Gondor decks? And it seems like all the rest of them were that we've been watching here involved hobbits.
yeah, we had one Boromir, and one Aragorn deck.
And then it was either Mary or Sam. Well, that was a great event. It was cool seeing all the mixed in cards from Expanded here with the movie era stuff, and I think that you did a really great job of coming up with a cool thematic way of having tons of different decks to choose from. How many boosters do people open in addition to the decks?
Oh, I think it's 9. I think
Oh,
if I
that
remember
duh,
correctly,
that makes sense. That if you're gonna have an event called
no,
the
but
Nine, that you may as well open
you
up
know what?
9.
I hadn't even thought of it that way though. I just did everything in movie block except for reflections. So it just happened to be 9.
Except to the win. That's what you
Yeah,
go. Oh yes, I planned it that way all along.
right. Yeah, I think of everything when I build these leagues. Nothing goes unthought of. Yeah.
All right. Well, so what do we have coming next month? Because next month you're going to be running another league, right? And then
Yep.
it won't be until August that the next tournament will be. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So in July we're going to be running Little Baddies Sealed, which focuses on smaller minions that have good abilities. So there's a Grima deck and a Ted Sandyman deck and a Golem deck, and I'm blanking on what the other one is. Oh, Bill Fernie are
Hmm.
the 4 shadow characters that we focus on there. Um, and then following that, I think I'm doing Age's End Sealed, which is going to be quite interesting. So it's going to be opening up an array of packs, similar to opening up a booster box, but then you get to choose 4 cards from Age's End of your choice. Any 4,
Hmm.
it can be the same 4 if you want to have consistency. It can be 4 different ones, but you get to tailor your picks to whatever you've opened in your packs, and that should be quite an interesting league because it lets you still have some sort of cohesive strategy, even if your polls haven't been that amazing. And then, yeah, past that, I haven't decided on the order of the last 2 yet. But we will have a tournament in August as well, as you mentioned, and it'll be one of those 2 formats, either Little Baddies Sealed or Age's End Sealed. So, looking forward to that. I guess, with this one, we're now halfway through the qualifying stage, and yeah, we got 6 really, really strong players qualified for the final, and it's shaping up to be what should be quite the final event. Hopefully, everyone will be able to make it on that day when it runs, and we can have just a showcase of sealed talent in all of our matchups.
So when was it that the Sealed Masters tournament or whatever that's called is going to be running for the finals?
The finals is sometime in November. I have
November.
the date in a post, my original post. It's just somewhere worked into there. Let me see. I'm gonna pop open my computer and try and find it here. But I do have the fallback plan that if people aren't able to make it, the players that have finished the highest in the various events will have a chance to take their place. So, um, yeah, let me take a look here. I
So
got
we've
the
got
blog post up.
we got the World Championship running in October, and so we'll have the circuit events running all the way up until then. And so then, right after October, it sounds like we'll have the Sealed Masters finals in November, and then
Yeah, that'll
December
be
is looking
November 22nd for
no,
the final.
November 22nd. Um, and so it sounds like we're going to have events of some flavor, just about every month. And then in December, we're looking like we're going to be in a pretty good shape to have V3 released. So I think we're going to have a little bit of everything all the way through the end of this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're keeping the community engaged, and hopefully people are enjoying it and feel spoiled with the current state of things here. Because we had a lot of years of the same rotation of the same events, and now we're trying to spice things up. So hopefully people have been enjoying it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me here today, Nelson. And thank you to everyone who's watching this on Twitch or on YouTube. Hope you all have a great time. See you all at the events next month.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.